Welcome to the Manders Mindset podcast. Here you'll find both monologue and interviews of entrepreneurs, coaches, healers, and a variety of other people, where your host Amanda Russo will discuss her own mindset and perspective and her guest mindset and perspective on the world around us. Manders and her guests will help explain to you how shifting your mindset will shift your life.
Do you want me to refer to you as Joseph or Joey?
Whatever fits for you. Typically, for my business stuff, I use Dr. Joseph and stuff, but most people end up, I don't know why. My son says it's because I'm immature, but most people end up calling me Joey.
I understand your son a lot. How old is your son? I kind of agree with him.
He's 28.
Oh, okay.
His name is Joseph as well.
I'm 29, so I relate with when he said
You're 29?
Yeah, when he said
Oh,
with Joe, that's why when he said he's 28, I'm like, oh, okay, that's why I agree with your son. Okay, I'm sorry.
It doesn't hurt here at all. It's right here is where the pain is.
I'm going to shut up.
No, this is fun. All right.
I forgot to ask, do you have a certain time you need to be off by?
I'd like to go to bed by midnight.
You dropped me. That's a long time. Okay.
Who knows where it's going to go?
God. Oh my gosh. Don't make me laugh.
You've been laughing since we came on this call.
Well, stop making me laugh.
You know, people always say that like it's my fault that they laugh.
It is. It is.
Now, the whole episode, you're going to ask me something. I'm just going to sit here and go.
Welcome to Manders Mindset, where we explore the power of shifting your mindset to shift your life. I'm your host, Amanda Russo, and I am here today with Dr. Joseph Drolshagen. I messed that up as well. It's okay. He has been featured in Fox, NBC, CBS, and USA News, along with being named one of the top business coaches in America for 4 consecutive years in the NYC Journal and Disruptors magazine. And I am so excited to speak with him. You are guys going to love him. He's also the rapid growth specialist, and we will see how we will grow in this episode. Thanks for joining me.
Great to be here with you, Amanda. I'm so excited for this conversation.
So am I. So who would you say Joseph is at the core?
Who would I say Joseph is at the core is a spirit. I'm a spiritual entity having a human experience is who I am.
Would you say you've always been a spiritual entity having a human experience?
I think all of us always are, but we don't recognize it as such. We get so tied into the worldly thing and the struggles and the upsets and the disappointments and things like that we start living that way. It's taken me a long time to shift that and get into living how I live today. It took me a long time to shift getting out of living like a chameleon with people pleasing to try to be who I thought other people wanted me to being like one human within myself, if that makes sense.
Why do you call that a chameleon?
Well, because people pleasing, that's what it is people pleasing is trying to be whoever everybody else wants us to be. So we wear different masks, we talk differently, we say different things, we use different vocabulary, things like that to try to please whoever it is we're trying to please at that moment. It just takes us further away from who we authentically are.
I agree. I've just never heard people pleasing compared to a chameleon. It makes sense though. Can you take us down memory lane? Tell us a little bit about your childhood, upbringing, however deep you want to take it.
I grew up in Detroit, Michigan. I was one of 5 siblings. My mom and dad stayed married to adopted apart, and I watched them struggle my entire youth. They always did everything we could do. It wasn't until later in life I would realize there's times they didn't eat dinner to make sure there was enough for us. And I watched that struggle. It just had that weight to it and stuff and everything. And I watched their relationship. I watched their health. I watched all these things happening and stuff. And as much as it was normal, that was my normal to see that. I knew something was wrong with it. And I remember at 9 years old, Amanda, I went to stay the night at a friend's house. And his dad was in white collar. He owned a Dairy Queen, things like that. So he took $20 out and handed it to us and told us to go get ice cream and stuff like that. And it was just a totally different experience. And then I left there the next day and I went home. And walking in the house, I didn't know how to describe it, but there was like such a heavier weight just walking in the house without even talking to anybody than there was at my friend's house and stuff. And so at that age, I said, man, I'm not living like you people. Because now I had some reference of how it could be. And then I grew up and I got through school and I got in my high school and I got into my early 20s. And I was living those same things that my parents did. I struggled all the time, regardless of how much money I had. I would always find reasons that needed to take any savings I built up. And I struggled in my work. I struggled in relationships. Like I did the exact same struggle played out through me. And at 22 years old, I had the opportunity to take over a multi-million-dollar construction company. I didn't even have to pull money out of my pocket to do so. We're just going to do it over I think it was 6 or 7 years that they were going to get a percentage of revenue to cover the pay for it. And went from it being the most exciting potential of my life, 3 days later of telling him I can't do this. And I wasn't even sure why, but that triggered something inside of me. And then I'd realized within a couple of weeks the reason why I chose I couldn't do it and why it felt so uncomfortable to grab hold of this with everything was because I felt I didn't deserve it because I didn't work hard enough for that opportunity. And that's what triggered me and started me on the route of the works I do today.
Oh, you didn't deserve it.
And ultimately, I thought there was something broken in me. There was something really, really wrong with me.
So after you toned this down, what'd you do from there?
Oh, I just started looking into anything I could do. I started looking up stuff with, like somewhere along the line, The Secret came in. Things like, Think and Grow Rich, like all of those things. There's so many, Dr. Wayne Dyer, and name after name after name, but there's so many different things. And I just started diving into all of it, trying to figure out. I went to counseling. I did one-on-one counseling. I did group counseling. And everything I did was initiated from the thought, there's something wrong with me. And I started following these things later on after the counseling. I would start getting into group programs. I would start doing one-on-one coaching and things like that. And everything I did, Amanda, just instilled even deeper, there's something the matter with me. Because I would go through these programs that talk about your life going from zero to billions type of a thing. It wasn't quite that extreme, but and I'd walk away and I'd learn stuff, but nothing changed in my results. And so every time I'd walk away from those things going even deeper, man, there's something the matter with me. I guess this is how I'm supposed to live my life. But I had something inside of me, and I wouldn't describe it at that time as knowing, but I just had something inside of me that sparked that was like, no. So I would go through all this stuff. I would take books and I'd read a book. And then I would go back through the book and create experiments out of it. And I really dove into all of this stuff. And then as I did so, and I get done doing those things, and I might feel some temporary change. I might have some of that feel good type of stuff going on and stuff, but nothing in my results changed. And it was only a matter of time before it was like, this isn't doing it. And because of that, not feeling worthy, because of that something broken in me, I would throw all that stuff away. Walk away from it, never for more than a year though. And then I would come back to it and try going about it a little different way and over and over and over. And it was almost like something I could not put down and leave and just go forward into the life I thought that I was destined to live. But it was miserable. It led to me abusing alcohol to the point of having to ask for help. It led to the point of gambling problems. It led to the point of doing a lot of things, trying to fill that hole, that void, brokenness within me.
You said you'd find yourself going back to it a year later.
Mm-hmm.
Why was that?
because there was nothing else. So when the spark started happening again, it's the only thing I knew to go back to, if that makes sense. You know, I've done so many different processes and tried so many different things and you know, different religious teachings. I'm Christian by my faith, but I've read about Native American traditions and all that stuff and applied those things. I've read about Buddhism and all kinds of different things and tried to apply them through the thing. And again, I would feel better. I would feel like there was some healing going on, but the results were always the same. Even to the point in my mid-20s, I ended up chance getting into corporate America and developing sales territories, doing outside sales. And I would travel 3,000 to 5,000 miles a week and barely scraping by, always nervous about whether I was going to get fired or not for not producing and all this stuff. But I'm seeing guys on my sales team, maybe not as big of territories, but with sales territories that were just killing it and taking vacations and going on Fridays and golfing and, you know, coming in late on Mondays and doing all this stuff. And I was like, man, for a little while, I think I thought some people are just meant to have an easier life than others. And then I got to a point of just wanting to give up. And that's when alcohol got strong, you know, stronger usage, things like that and everything. And I was ready to walk away from all that and just get a job in a shop. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I very highly respect people in blue collar America. And so my dad's whole family lineage has been blue collar and things like that. But I thought, man, I guess that's what I'm supposed to do, is just work in a shop someplace. And I was just about ready to quit what I was doing and do that. Like I even had interviews and things like that, you know, and people would go, wait, you're doing this now? Why would you want to do this? And I would be honest and say, because I can't be successful at that. This I can. And I came across The Subconscious Mind in a book Joseph Murphy wrote. And I started reading through it, kind of not expecting anything different, but I didn't really know much about subconscious or, you know, conscious, subconscious, like the whole mindset, how it works independently and interdependently. And through that process, I started understanding the subconscious is what the programming within the subconscious is what determines how we experience life. And that opened up a doorway. Think at that time, I actually quit looking to fix me, but it really loaded up the flames on my desire to understand this better. And that's what the last 30 some years, almost 40 years of my life have been about, is studying that. Doctorate degree, you know, the major focus was around the subconscious programming and things like that. And so everything I've done has been in regards to that. And what I ended up learning from there forward, because then once I understood the subconscious, and that took years. I mean, it might have taken me 7 years to really understand that from the time I picked that book up and started reading it, to understanding how it's playing out in my life, to understand to where I can actually see the results are based on that, to come to an understanding that I explain to people now is the subconscious. The importance of the subconscious is we have this programming in there, the network of programming that our patterns, our paradigms, our belief system, our experiences, even experiences we didn't have firsthand, but somebody told us about, is all embedded in that subconscious programming. But the important thing about that is that subconscious triggers the brain waves to the actions we take or the actions we don't take. So if you take somebody who's stuck in struggle and they have programming about struggle and something comes easy to them, they're going to procrastinate. They're going to do all kinds of things other than take those actions. And the way it feeds out, and I can talk about the conscious mind in a minute and how that ties in, but the way it feeds out is that subconscious programming is what determines our perceptions of the world. It determines how we see us in the world. It determines all that. And then our perceptions are what determines the results we experience. So in all of this stuff, in another 2 decades of study, to put it simply, if we want to change our results, we have to shift our perceptions. The only way we can do that on a permanent level is we have to go back into that subconscious and identify and shift that programming at that level. And then everything starts flowing even more so. Does that make sense, Amanda?
It does. It does.
So
And
once go on.
what did you say that the book was that you read, Subconscious Mind?
I think it's a subconscious mind, something subconscious mind by Joseph Murphy. Yeah. Yeah. And that was a starting point for me. And so what I've done is ever since then, is I've built upon that to the SMT method that I've developed that's helped so many people rapidly change their life, whether it's their health and well-being, whether it's relationships, whether it's their vocation in what they're doing, or whether it's their time, money, freedom, getting to live the life the way they want to live their life.
Now, can you explain what this SMT method is?
Heck yes, I can. I sure can. I would love to. The SMT method stands for Subconscious Mindset Training. And what it is we go up and we identify that programming in the subconscious that's causing the minimal results at best. And once we identify, we can't do anything until we identify it. But once we identify it, then we have the tools within the SMT method to shift that programming to get more in alignment with what we want. So if I can explain the whole SMT method really quickly, I'll do it like this. We come out of the gate developing what the SMT method refers to as a dynamic vision. Now, a vision board, things like that, those are powerful, right? Because they have the visuals of what it is we want. We can see those pictures and everything else. That's powerful. The way we take that to a dynamic level is we step into living that life. And what does it feel like to live that life? What does that look like? What does it feel like? How does it feel to be that person in that life? So once we get to vision, and even in developing the vision, Amanda, we're bumping up against that limited programming so we can identify and shift it. And then once we have that vision, the vision is coming from our intuition. The vision is coming from our imagination and things like that. And so a big part of it comes from the conscious mind. In our conscious mind, we know what we want. Sometimes people are so far into the struggle, they can't even see it, but I can help them identify what that is they really want. Once we have that, and that's incorporated into the vision, now what we do is we start continue identifying those limitations in the subconscious, shifting that programming to open it up. And we have total alignment. We have our conscious mind working, instead of it being like this, where our knowing is here and our subconscious is here, we start bringing alignment. So the conscious and subconscious are working into alignment. And then we take that vision and put it at the head of all of it. And now we have complete alignment to the vision that we have in doing so. Throughout the process, there's multiple modules we go through in the SMT method to continue identifying that, but then we have the tools to shift that, and people start realizing greater results almost from day one. And what differs in the SMT method from all of those, so many other programs, I'll say, is most coaching programs have a model, and it's locked. Model is what it is. Everybody does this. Everybody does this. Everybody does it. So people come into that model, and they have to contort who they really are in order to fit that model. The way the SMT program has been developed, because I experienced that first one a lot of times and walked away disappointed by results. So the way the SMT is set up is there's a module or a model, but that model can fluctuate to meet the individuals. I don't have 2 clients that do the exact same things, but I have hundreds of clients who are very successful at what they do. So what we do is we align the model to the individual. We do that through the uniqueness of the individual. We do that through the things that light them up and turn on their attraction. And as we're developing systems of accelerating habits, which is part of the thing where we find out what really lights us up and how do we do that more often. And all of that's based on individual. So I don't have a roadmap that says everybody does A, B, and C to get to D. What I have is through that process, people are developing their unique roadmap that they can take away from this and apply to anything in their life that they want to achieve.
Now, the SMT method, would you say it's for anybody?
It's for anybody that's struggling in life. whether it's financial, whether it's relationships, whether it's health and well-being or vocation, whatever it is, yeah, time and money, whatever it is, it helps. It has helped with, yeah. When I started doing this, and I've been teaching this stuff and seeing people achieve way beyond what they ever expected to before the SMT method was ever named the SMT method, just through tools. When I talked about traveling 3,000 to 5,000 miles a week, once I started identifying those things and shifting those, I went from barely getting ready to quit, worried all the time of anxiety about getting fired and stuff, to landing $18 million, $22 million. And the highest was a $25 million. And they're all year over year contracts for companies. And all of a sudden I was the guy out there golfing on Friday. And all of a sudden I was the person who was coming in late. And I was the person but I stayed on top of everything I had going on. It just became easy and enjoyable. So from there, I got promoted up into management and then eventually up as a VP of sales. And what I loved doing was taking my sales personnel and elevating a greater percentage of them to top producers within the organization. And across at least 3 organizations, I have led enough salespeople to where they had the highest number of top producers the corporations have ever experienced having.
What made you make the shift?
Well, because when I was thinking when I was a VP and I walked off to do all of this on my own 10, 11 years ago, whatever it's been now. Is that what you're asking, that shift?
Yeah.
I got to a point, the last organization I worked with got themselves in bankruptcy, and I was part of the core team to bring them back into profitability. And I swear every gray hair I have came from that. Was such a hard time because I would go home on Friday and there were 200 some employees, 270 some employees that needed this job. There wasn't a lot of industry in the area where it was at. And I couldn't do anything Saturday. I couldn't do anything Sunday until Monday rolled around. So I didn't have good weekends in there. I was stress, anxiety, all that stuff. But what happened is I so much enjoyed working with the sales personnel and seeing them elevate. And now I had worked with some people, personal development, and seeing them elevate without having the SMT. And I didn't like doing all the other things a VP of sales has to do. I didn't like coming up with forecasts and things like that of guesses of what I wanted to do. I started living by visions instead of goals, which is huge. And so to come up with the goals of what was going to happen was a lot different than what I even believed in anymore. But I loved working with the people and helping them cross that barrier, break that gap, and start opening up to achieving greater heights in their life. And so I came up with a point where I was like, I can't stand doing that stuff. We're in the bankruptcy. We're just about to get a company come in, dump $12 million in the operations and stuff. And I said, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to work with people doing this, what has become the SMT. And so I just made a decision. And it's funny because I made the decision to do that. I had one client I was working with on personal development. I was from Michigan and Iowa at the time. And I decided to move down here to the mountains of South Carolina where I knew nobody and start building this business. Using the tools of the SMT, everything just had not always, everything's been flowing. Everything within the first year, I was making more in this business than I had ever done in corporate America. And as a VP, I had a pretty good salary and bonus and all that stuff. So towering over that, excuse me. Well, then what happened is we had to interrupt because COVID hit a couple of years into this. And when COVID hit, we all did, all of us, everything just dropped off. I had 14 or 15 speaking engagements drop in one day and everything fell off. The clients I was talking to and, potential clients, things like that and stuff, they were like, I'm not doing anything right now. We have no idea what's going to happen. We're not spending a penny. And we all did that. We all experienced that. So I'm not standalone there. But as things dropped down, I went back into the old programming without realizing it and started going schizo again with working 12, 14, 16 hours a day, with coming up with numerous, all kinds, so many things to do differently to try and spark it again. That I actually, within 5 weeks, 2 of the people I had on my team at that time left because they said, we can't keep up with you. I'm so confused all the time. We start here and then all of a sudden we interrupt and go here and then we go. And that I was back in that following that programming of working my tail off. And then at some point, I called the coach I'd been working with, and I go, listen, I got to talk to you about this. When the second person left, I go, I got to talk to you about this. And so we started talking and everything else. And he goes, you're getting back into following what you're seeing in the world. And so he kind of helped me identify a couple of the programming things that, and then, I already had some tools to start shifting it that I had kind of taught him as well. So we were using those and shifting it. And then the big thing, the big, huge step I took there is he said, why don't you pack up your truck for a week, take your dog, and go out to Chattanooga hang gliding for a week? So like hang gliding. And I go, I don't think you understand. He goes, yeah, I do. And you understand too. So reluctantly, I did it and went out there. 4 times throughout that week, I had people call me out of the blue and say, I'd like to talk to you about your coaching. By the end of that week, 3 of those people had signed up to coach with me. And all of a sudden, I was back in that flow. I was back in that alignment, my vision to my conscious, to my subconscious, which then affected this result. And I was back in that alignment. And all I do now is I stay close to that vision. And as I change, the vision changes. So I change it and I stay in that alignment place, and everything works out easier with less effort than what I've ever experienced the other way around. My clients would tell you the same thing. And I've taken clients from a couple $1,000s a month while working, in their business, while working full time, to leaving the job and now doing between $55,000 and $60,000 a week in revenue. I've helped people in business that had a $7.5 million business. It was a 13-year high that within 12 months toppled over $22 million. I've helped people who were looking for that love of their life, and they felt so unloved and so unlovable and this and that and everything, to engagement and getting married, that I'm invited to their wedding in the spring here, and I get to speak there and stuff like that and everything. You get to see that change happen to people, all because of that SMT method. And really all because of seeing my parents struggle the way they did and then following that. And my parents were really good people, but they didn't have these tools available to them. And so part of my passion and my heart in this is like, I don't ever want to see people struggle the way they do for money or for relationships, or move so far away from who they authentically are to try to get something back more in life.
I get that. I want to transition a tad. What made you decide, when you made this big shift about leaving the job and pursuing this, to also move?
I'll make a long story short, kind of. I had ended a relationship and I just wanted to get away for a while and just kind of recharge. So all I looked for is a rustic cabin and a trout stream. And that's all I wanted to do. I didn't want to meet people. I just wanted to be alone to process, and I wanted to trout fish. I love rivers because moving water and things like that. So I find one here close to where I'm at, right within 7 minutes from where I'm at. She ends up introducing me to this realtor guy, and I go, yeah, okay, I'll call him. Just give me his number. And she goes, okay. I didn't want to call him. I didn't want to know anybody. I didn't want to meet anybody. I just wanted to have that time, and so he ended up calling me about half hour after I unload my vehicle into the rustic cabin. We went to lunch. We ended up talking. We ended up fishing and everything else. Through the process of doing so, he just so happened to be a realtor here, and he showed me my house, the home I have now up in the mountains. And okay, nice. Let's go fishing. And honestly, on Amanda, I caught 2 nice trout. One cast, and then the second cast caught the other one. And half kidding, I go, let's go make an offer on that place. And we did, and they accepted it. And there's so many other things that came into play that ended with me moving here to start this business. It just all unfolded. It wasn't effort. It wasn't hard work. And if I ever told, that could be a whole episode just on that story, because there's so many things that fell into place that I didn't even know I needed to do, have done for this to work out the way it has. And then once I got down here and settled in and stuff, I just started going out every day, and I would carry 5 business cards in my front pocket. And my whole intention was to meet 5 people a day and just talk to them about what I do and give it to them. That ended up leading to me getting into the Chamber of Commerce here and speaking, and then doing lunch and learns, and then later on leading for 2 or 3 years, their leadership, 8-month leadership conference. And then that led to other things and the whole thing grew up for me.
And now, what made you decide you wanted to meet 5 people every day?
It was just an idea I had. That's okay. So we talked about the vision and being our imagination, right? Our intuition is so powerful, and you know that based on what you do. Our intuition is so powerful, but it's only as loud as our willingness to listen. So our intuition is trying to guide us all the time.
That was just deep. I like that.
We're going around all the time, and we get our minds busy with our strategy, with our action plans, with our exhaustive flippant to-do lists and everything else, that we don't have time. We don't have anything open to hear it coming in. And that's why when I'm working with people, one of the first things I get them to do is throttle back a little, because it starts opening up that connection where we can hear it then. And it guides us so much. We end up overhearing something somebody's talking about, or we have a thought, and people have this and they call them coincidences, but we can use it as a design to live by, where when we need information, we don't care. When we determine, it doesn't matter where it comes from. So often we go, okay, I need to figure this out. And then we line up how that's going to get answered. But when we just ask the question and allow it to show up, it can show up in so many ways. And most times it does. I'm sure you've experienced that, where you want to know the answer to something and you don't go to Google or AI or things like that to figure it out. And all of a sudden you overhear somebody, or you listen to radio or TV or you read a book, and all of a sudden the answer just pops out at you.
Yeah.
But when we're doing 150 miles an hour, we don't hear that. We don't get that. So think about this. Now you got a dynamic vision you're living your life from. And ultimately what we do is we take that vision and we call that our reality. Because let me ask you something, Amanda, who chooses the reality for your life?
I do.
Yeah. So we can place it on what our eyes see, right? In the world, and at the time of COVID, different things happening, and the state of the economy, the federal government, whatever it may be, we can focus on those things, and that can be our reality. We can have this vision. And when we get that vision as the reality, we're going to choose to be our focus. Then the things that happen in our everyday life, they can't pull us as deep into the gutters and things like that of life, into the muck of it. Is there just what it looks like as that vision is unfolding? So now we have that complete alignment going. Now we go forward, we start developing systems of accelerating habits that, like I talked about before, are unique to the individual. So I'm not looking to tell every person, you have to do this first, and then you have to do this, and then you have to do this, and you got to do this so often, you got to do this, and it doesn't work like that. It works off of, because really to get to our authentic self, we have to get into the emotional side as well. So we look at what feels good. I know my vision, and I know there's things I want to accomplish and I want to see come to fruition in my vision and to experience in my life and stuff like that. But I don't have the A, B, and B, C plan on how that's going to happen. Because whenever I do that, I shut out so much power that can work on my behalf. And that's really the core when we talk about manifesting. That's really the core. So when I say that the SMT method is like the law of attraction on steroids, that's what I mean. Because there's so many things we hear all the time about the law of attraction. We hear about this, we hear about that, but we don't ever get to the guts of it. What prevents us from living in that manifesting state? The subconscious programming. We always hear terms like you can only go as far as you let yourself, right? What I've done is taken that statement very, very serious in my life. And I look at, what does that mean? And then what I found out was it's subconscious programming. We don't control what's in our programming. Now, we can control the conscious mind and what we think about, where we spend our time, who we talk to, all that stuff and everything. But what's in that subconscious programming, we don't get to decide whether that's going to affect an action, whether we take it or not, and things like that. We don't. It's just set up that way in our system. So what we do have, thank God, what we do have is the power to identify that limitation and then shift that to put more empowering beliefs in place of it. And that's when we start really seeing rapid growth happen in our experiences.
I've got a question. Something you briefly mentioned. You mentioned about working with visions instead of goals.
Yes.
Can you elaborate a little bit on as
We
to
look at our
why
goals. We look at our goals. They're hit or miss. We either hit a goal or we miss a goal, right?
Yeah.
And then typically we look at that. So we did good or we did bad based on the goal. When we get a goal and we achieve it, then we right away set another goal, which is another hit or miss. So we're spending our life trying not to miss. We're spending our life trying to be enough to get this goal, right? And things like that. It's self-driven. The whole goal orientation thing is self-driven. When we look at the vision, we develop that vision. I always look out a few years in developing that vision. It doesn't mean it needs to take that long to come to fruition, but it means we get a wider perspective when we look out a little further. So we do that. So we take that vision, and the vision is as alive as we are. So my vision is as alive as I am. So as I grow and expand and start experiencing more of this, the vision's going to change. So I go in and I change that vision to be where I'm at. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we continue allowing that vision to be the focus of our reality. You can't really do that with goals. They're hit or miss. And so when you look at a goal and you look at achieving a goal, it's always what's behind that goal is always everything we have to do in order to achieve it. A vision, I don't care how the heck my vision shows up. I just want to experience it. So I'm open to any and every avenue for that to show up, those answers we talked about for the questions. I don't care where the answer comes from. I just want to experience getting that answer. And I've used this same thing with doing, for me, it's big, but 5Ks. Where instead of having the goal and the breakdown and everything else of all the detail, and pushing myself and everything else of how I'm going to do it, I just had a vision of that 5K. And I had a vision it was easy getting to that point. And I actually did better than what I predicted I was going to do in a couple of the 5Ks I've done. But I didn't do rigorous things. I just got into the excitement of it. And all of a sudden, instead of pushing myself to go out and run 3 miles in a day, or multiple times a week and go out to a track every Sunday and do 2 5Ks, one earlier, rest a while and do another one. Instead of doing all of that stuff, I just got into the excitement of seeing it, of what I would how I would feel inside of myself achieving that 5K and things like that. So can you see where it's much deeper than a goal?
Do you not set goals?
I don't set goals, I set visions. Now, I do strategize. But when I strategize, it's like what do I want? Like a lot of times I find I ask myself, so what do I want my impact to be? I want to impact millions of people's lives with the works I do. And so one of the ways that have come to me through that, and I didn't go out looking for it, is I'm starting to certify other coaches in the SMT method. So now it can branch out beyond what I can do alone. And I'm talking to somebody right now to start, and we already have the institute started and stuff, to start an institute to start certifying more coaches at a higher, greater level. That can happen now. And even after I'm gone from here, that's how my life works will go on.
I love that.
And so now it can go beyond 1 million people. But I didn't strategize and take a piece of paper and pen and go, okay, this is how I'm going to do it. I just allowed it to show up to me, to show me how that was going to happen. And those are the things that came about. You see how much easier it can be living from visions than it is goals? Same thing with relationships, same things with finances, same thing with everything else. But as long as we're stuck in our head with doing our strategies, our to-do list, we miss out on all that other potential and possibility for things to show up because we close it out.
That makes sense. Is there anything that the SMT method wouldn't be able to help somebody with?
I don't know, not anything I've met. And I've worked with people, both male and female, who have been molested as kids and things like that and stuff, and helped shift that around to take, instead of carrying all the guilt and the shame and all the stuff that goes with that, to help that, which then allowed them. It's funny how our programming can be so far away from what we're trying to get, but still. I'll give you a really quick example. Okay. I started working with a guy. When I met this guy, his whole life was just really mediocre. Like, I couldn't say he was married and his wife wore the pants of the family. He had 2 kids he wasn't really close with and stuff like that. His job, he was worried. Like, I had been worried about getting fired all the time and everything else. So we started working together. Within 6 weeks of working together, within 4 weeks, we came across this thing. When he was in the 5th grade, he had to start at a brand new school. He knew nobody. So the bell rings for the first day, and everybody goes to their class, and he goes to the principal's office because he had to do assessment testing, before entering school. And the principal took his, report, and he said, "Wow, look at this, man. 5th grade. You're in 8th grade reading. You're in college mathematics. You're just high scholars within stuff." He said, "Man, I'm really proud to have you here. Take this and go to your classroom." So he took that, went down to his classroom. Now think about 5th grade, brand new school, knowing nobody, and you got to walk in and interrupt the class. That's not a comfortable place to be. And so he walks in and he hands it to the teacher. And instead of telling them sit down, she stood there. She goes, "Oh, look at," I'll call him Johnny. "Look at Johnny. He's in the 8th grade reading college math," and went through the whole thing and berating this child and ending it with, "Well, I guess he should be teaching this class," and sent him to a seat. He spent that whole year being picked on, bullied, and ridiculed by his classmates because of what that teacher had done. And within that 5th grader's little mind, he promised himself he would never let the world see that in him again, so he wouldn't get ridiculed for it. Almost like it became a huge negative for him. Amanda, I met this man at 52 years old, and he still lived by that promise. So we identified that, and then we shifted that. All of a sudden, we started opening up doorways. And the guy would call me once, sometimes twice a week, and tell me about these different breakthroughs he had at work, or something here or something there. And I'll never forget, he called me one time on a Thursday night. And he goes, "I got to tell you this. I got to tell you this." I go, "Go." I'm all excited. So he goes, "Man, my wife came out. She goes, 'Hey, here's what we're doing this weekend,' and started naming off everything they're doing." And he just looked at her and said, "No." And he said, the way she stared at him, he felt like that little boy back in that classroom. And he said, "Well, the only reason I said that is because I thought we could do this on Saturday or whatever as a family and stuff and spend more time together and stuff." And he said she just kept staring at him. And he didn't know what to do. And so she leaned into him and said, "That was so hot." And that changed. He ended up, within 6 months we worked together, he ended up going to being promoted in his company. So whenever they hired new people, they had to work with him for 2 or 3 months in order to get up the learning curve quicker and start scaling quicker by working with him and stuff. His relationship with his kids became closer. His marriage definitely, became a lot better and more fulfilling for both sides and everything. And just his whole life. And you think about that instance in the 5th grade, stopped that man from all those years of living the life he wanted to live. If him and I hadn't have met, he may never have identified that and been able to shift that to live the life he's living today.
Wow.
So,
What would you say the biggest thing the SMT method shifted inside of you?
so many, there's some multiple, but the really big ones is that belief in myself. For me, it backs up even more so than me is like that, based on my beliefs and things like that. Like I have a God that loves me no matter what I do. I have a God that forgives me. I have a God that wants to be close to me. I am protected. I am watched over, and I am guided. It's never been up to just me to get the life I want to live. That was one. The other one was the people pleasing, and that took a lot of hard knocks to get that understanding inside of me that I don't have to be what other people want me to be. Today, I get to just be me. And it works for some people. It doesn't work for some people. And I can be okay with that.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Now, I want to transition a tad. I'm curious, and I'm sure you've had a few of them, but I'm curious what you would say is the biggest aha moment you've had in your life.
I think one of them were when that happened with the construction company, and I realized I only passed on it because I thought I wasn't deserving, because I didn't work hard enough. And and it didn't happen right in that moment, but where it went back to is my whole life I've been told a man gets a job, supports a family, and hopefully lives long enough to enjoy some retirement. That work isn't supposed to be fun. That's why it's called work. And if you want something, even early coaching, it's shifted now, but even early coaching was, if you want something, if you want a successful business or you want a successful financial life, then you got to be willing to trade off your family and trade off this and trade off that. And I do have another story about that, because in my late 20s, I was married at the time, and we had 3 pregnancies. My wife at the time and I. The first child was born at 24 weeks and lived for, was on all kinds of equipment and everything else, and then passed. The second time my son was born, healthy. And then we repeated the first one with a third pregnancy. So when I say I adore my son, everybody adores their children for their reason. My reason is because he truly is the greatest miracle of my life that I get to experience, and to get to be his dad and everything else. On his first birthday, having that meaning to me, on his first birthday, I wasn't home with him celebrating his 1 year. And he wouldn't have known anyways, but for me, I wasn't there. I was in Indiana trying to build a sales territory, because that's what I was told a man does. And I remember that day, even just telling you this right now, it'll still bring tears to my eyes of what I missed in that day, and how much I hated life and the world and jobs and all that stuff, that I had to miss that. And so many people miss times like that of their life. And if I can do anything to help prevent that in somebody's life, it makes the sacrifice I went through have a reason to it.
I'm sorry about your 2 other kids.
Thank you.
That's so tough.
Yeah. And the fact that I wasn't there hurts as much today as it did the day it happened.
I bet it does. Oh gosh. Well, it seems like this method really, really transformed your life.
Yeah. And it's done so for hundreds of clients I've worked with since I started doing it too. It's just amazing. And it's so, so incredible to get to be there, to see somebody go through that breakthrough, to see that 5-year-old, that 5th grader, see what his promise had been and shift that, and what the results come from that. So it's just so amazing, Amanda. And I, with what you do, I know of it and stuff. So I know the incredible experiences you get to take clients through to experience it. It's just, man, oh my God, there is no greater high in my life than that.
I can understand. I can definitely understand. Have you heard of a man named Jay Shetty?
Oh, yeah.
I'm a big, big fan. So he's got a podcast called On Purpose, and he ends his podcast with 2 segments, and I've stolen them, and I end mine with those 2 segments as well. Maybe I borrowed them. I've had a lot of guests tell me to stop saying that I stole them, but borrowed, repurposed, but they're the same questions. First segment is the many sides to us, and there's 5 questions, and they need to be answered in 1 word each.
Go.
What is 1 word someone who is meeting you for the first time would choose to describe you as?
What's the first question? I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. I would say.
I thought you didn't hear me.
Sorry.
I was like,
We've done so well. Let's not start yelling at me now. I would say either energetic or authentic.
1 word, not 2.
Really.
Come on.
Can I call a friend?
No.
Authentic.
First word that comes to mind.
Authentic. I saw it. We got 4 more questions. Oh.
What is one word that someone who knows you extremely well would use to describe you as?
Energetic.
Just the word you were going to use for the first one.
I couldn't use it. It is.
I don't know if that's true. I feel like you were just using that, but it's funny.
Do you know all of your guests like that? Should call it Jay when we get done here.
Please give me his phone number. Go for it, and then give me the number. What is one word you'd use to describe yourself?
Servant.
What is one word that if someone didn't like you or agree with your mindset, would use to describe you as?
They didn't like me. Good question. I mean, at first I think it was. That's right. They don't agree with me, like disagreement.
Yeah, that's...
Like, I'm very positive. I like being on the positive side. People who want to live on the drama of life wouldn't like me because of how I am.
So what's one word they would use to describe you?
Didn't I give it to you?
You just said they would disagree with you, but that you basically repeated the question. What is one word someone didn't like you or agree with you?
Hang on, folks. I hear a part 2 coming.
You didn't answer the question.
What would be a word? Disagreeable.
What is one word you're trying to embody right now?
Trust.
Second segment. What?
I said, oh, that was acceptable.
They're all acceptable. Listen, you didn't say disagreeable at first. You were just like, they would disagree.
Yeah.
At first, you were just like, they would disagree with me, which is basically just the sentence version of the question.
You could be right.
I am right. Second segment is the final 5. And these can be answered in a sentence. What is the best advice you've heard or received?
To look inward.
Why is that the best?
Because it's what's allowed me to go through all the things I've gone through, get the lessons out of those, and develop ultimately the SMT method, but develop the life that I live today and help other people to develop that life of their visions.
What is the worst advice you've heard or received?
Do these things and you will be successful.
Why was that the worst?
Because I wasn't meant to do those 3 things. I'm not a robot. I was meant to find my avenue.
I get that.
That should be a star, a golden star, I think.
What is something that you used to value that you no longer value?
I used to, God, I so badly wanted to get a brand new Corvette, ZR1, loaded everything else and stuff like that. And I remember probably about a handful of years ago, my son and I were together. We're talking about stuff, and that went by. He goes, Dad, wouldn't you love to buy one of those? And I go, no. See, I'd rather have that money and choose to invest it in my business and things like that. I don't want a Corvette anymore. The material things of life. I have things I love. I have a Harley Davidson. I have a truck I love, a house I love. It's not about the glamour, the outside glamour, as it is the inside fulfillment.
I like that. If you could describe what you would want your legacy to be, as if someone was reading it, what would you want it to say?
That my life goes on till the end of this world.
And you're doing that. You're setting that up with the coaching for the other people to teach that. I love that, by the way. I love that. I have spoken to a lot of coaches, and I have not met a single person who has said that they are developing a method for other people to coach what they are actually.
And my son, I told you he's 28 years old, and he wants to come into doing this. And I told him, no, you don't have enough life experience yet. You got to experience life for yourself. You got to build those things where you start bumping into that programming so that you can shift it and things like that. Otherwise, you're not going to know how to help other
You
people.
told him no?
Not right now. Told him, keep getting life experience. At the right time, you'll know it. I'll know it. And it'll happen.
He doesn't have enough life experience?
I guess I don't think so.
Maybe the 29-year-old in me doesn't like that you said that.
You know, I appreciate your honesty.
I'm just saying. But
No,
I can get what you mean. I can get what you mean. But nonetheless, I think you teaching this to other people, I think is phenomenal. Phenomenal.
It's amazing how many people from all different industries and different walks of life and everything else I teach this to. And then they go out teaching their family and their community and their employees or, people at work and things like that. They don't do the whole thing like I do, but they're able to help people live better lives. And that's really what this is all about at the bottom line. It's helping people live better lives.
That's amazing. That's amazing. If you could create one law in the world that everyone had to follow, what would it be? And I want to know why.
Stop making people robots. And I'm talking specifically about the school system. We go through school and it's robotics training is all it is. And I'll give you an example. If you and I are in algebra class together and we have some problem to solve. And I go through and show all of the work that they teach me to show to get to that bottom answer. And I get it correct. I get 100% for that. Now you, Amanda, this little hotshot comes along and you have some ideas on how to skip a few of those steps and you still get the right answer. You get marked down rather than being rewarded for creativity and coming up with that solution with less work. You get less points for that problem because of it. And our life is so filled, whether it's, the upbringing that we grew up in and people that are giving us that programming are doing the best they can do. But our school systems is huge into that robotic training. And then we get jobs. And then even people starting a business and they go, these places come to them and go, here's how you start your business. And it's just more robotic training. Stop it. Get into the uniqueness of the individuals because each one of us has a spirit filled with a purpose that only we can bring forward into this life. And as you start bringing more of that forward, the whole world shifts because of it. I know that sounds a little bit out there, but it's true. Stop the robotic training of human beings and start celebrating, rewarding, and nourishing the uniqueness of individuals.
Why would that be the law?
Because what it would do is it would allow more people to come from their uniqueness to come forward, bringing that passion, purpose, and really even just the celebration of that uniqueness forward into this world and make it a better place for everyone.
That's true. Thank you so much. I really
nailed that one, didn't I?
You did. You nailed that one. I do like to give it back to the guest. Any final words of wisdom? Anything you want to leave the listeners with before we fully close out?
I just want to tell anybody, if you're struggling in an area of your life, and it doesn't matter what area, you're just tired of the struggle, there's avenues you can go to change that. And one of the things, anybody who's watching this right now, I want to give away 2 gifts to your audience, if I could, Amanda. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
The first one is anybody can schedule call with me, an introductory call. There's no sales BS to it or anything else. It's all really about serving and talk about that struggle and give you some tools. So hang up the phone. You have some other alternatives you can go to that would open up that results bigger and stuff. That's one. And then the other one, which I'm sure you're going to have in the show notes, is a book that I wrote that's very personal to me. And the name of the book is Align, Manifest, Transform. And the whole book is based on the fact of avenues to harness the power of the law of attraction on steroids. So it's going even beyond what the basic law of attraction can do and how we open that up in a more rapid pace and a lasting pace where it's not just a fluke one-time thing and stuff. And like I said, we could put the link in the notes here if you don't mind, and anybody can go there and download that book.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Joseph. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this has been an absolute pleasure. What a great conversation too. Yes, great questions.
Thank you. And are you active on any social media? If anybody,
Yeah, and we could put that in the notes as well because I'm active, I think, on all of them.
I will link that in the notes
Right.
as well. And thank you guys for tuning in to another episode. In case no one told you today, I'm proud of you. I'm rooting for you. And you got this. As always, if you enjoyed the show, I would really appreciate it if you would leave me a 5-star rating, leave a review, and share it with anyone you think would benefit from this. And don't forget, you are only one mindset shift away from shifting your life. Thanks, guys. Until next time.